this. For those who like to sit there and hug on my wife and say you love Karen, Karen was standing in the tub because they were shooting during the last NFC championship game. And Mayor, you remember how hot I was. And even though, and you can smile, but the mayor asked me to lay back off the police department during the campaign. I want to make sure that I receive that same safety if I vote yes tonight. Yes, that's what I'm asking. Will you be overworked, sir, if I vote yes to you to be the village manager tonight?
So,
yes or no?
Sir,
yes or no?
No, sir. No, sir.
That's what I want.
Okay.
Great. Thank you so much.
Just for clarity, I believe the, Madam Mayor, I'm sorry to jump in like this, but when we created the commander's position, we did not eliminate the deputy chief position. There was a deputy chief and 2 commanders. However, we did not fund the deputy chief position for 2 years. So there is a deputy chief and 2 commanders as part of an overall command structure for the growth of the police department that is known.
And the fire chief. You want all that, because you want. Okay. All right. Roll call again.
Trustee Williams. Trustee Wilson.
No.
Trustee Brooks.
Pass.
Trustee McMullen.
Vote aye.
Trustee Payton.
Aye.
Trustee Payton.
Aye.
Trustee Brown.
Aye.
Mayor Covington.
Aye.
Trustee Williams. Trustee Wilson. Oh, you voted me. Sorry, Trustee Brooks.
Vote aye.
Madam Mayor, motion carried. That's ordinance 2017-29.
Thank you. Congratulations. Resolution accepting the treasurer's report. Oh, sorry. I'll ask someone to.
Table.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am. Again, motion to table by Trustee Wilson,
Second.
second by Trustee Brooks. Comments, concerns?
No comment.
Okay, I'm sorry. This is a motion to table. Roll call.
Trustee Williams. Trustee Wilson.
Aye.
Trustee Brooks.
Vote aye.
Trustee McMullen. Trustee Payton.
Aye.
Trustee Brown.
Aye.
And Mayor Covington.
All right, when will we get this done?
Mayor, we'll be meeting on Friday, hopefully within the next week, so I'll be asking for a date next week. And I'll be sending out an email to the board tomorrow to poll the board on their availability for next week.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor,
Yes, ma'am.
if I could, it is important that we do this as soon as possible.
Yes.
Because once approved, it has to be posted in the newspaper and then filed by December 28th.
So did you guys hear that? Make yourselves available.
So
Okay.
can we just do a general consensus now? It's Tuesday, next Tuesday?
Next Tuesday's fine with me. Everyone else, Tuesday evening?
Yeah.
Is that fine with everyone else? Doctor, excuse me, Miss, I'm sorry.
The next Tuesday is probably.
Okay, everybody's okay? With that, Friday, next Tuesday, 7 o'clock?
That's December
The 19th.
That'll give us time to post it by the 28th.
From the newspaper, clerk details.
Yeah, that's on a Tuesday. Yeah, we could probably have it done and run that Thursday.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Resolution of Village University Park, Village County, Illinois, authorizing providing for $1,800,000 inter-fund loan for the special tax allocation fund of TIF District 5 to the general corporate fund secured by 2017 tax levy of the Village University Park and Will County, Illinois. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Trustee Brooks, second.
Second.
Second by Trustee Oscar Brown. Questions, concerns? I have it, do we have a schedule of the repayment of this loan?
Madam Mayor,
Yep, I see it here, I just wanted to explain to the public.
Madam Mayor, first, let me provide some clarification on the repayment schedule. So the repayment schedule is structured within the loan. What we discovered prior to doing this current loan, the repayment schedule, the perception was that the bank was going to draft and hold the funds. We have made an arrangement with the bank to draft and pull the current $1.7 million loan prior to pulling out this $1.8 million. I'm just being transparent because it was the board's perception that the payment schedule was being followed, but unfortunately, nobody was monitoring the payment schedule until I became interim manager to make sure those transfers were being happened in an appropriate manner. I will say we do have enough funds in our general corporate fund and all other funds to cover the $1.7 million drawdown and payback prior to taking the $1.8 million loan. Now, our residents ask for transparency. That is transparency. I'm being very direct and open because that is what's required of me, and I think that's what the board is required, of my responsibilities. It's my responsibility to the residents. So based on that fact, the first 1.7 will be paid back prior to the 1.8 being drawn out. It is my hopes that we have a compliant 2016 audit so we can get a tax anticipation loan next time.
We weren't following the payment schedule, is that what you're telling me right now?
That's exactly what I'm saying. That's
Are
exactly what
you
I'm
going to
saying.
ensure that this payment schedule is followed?
Yes, sir.
All right, because we can't have this, because
Exactly. So when we had a conference call, so when this current TIF loan was generated, we had a conference call with Attorney Kankar that was coordinated by Montana and Welch, myself, and Cecilia Kelly. The perception was based on being told by Manager Townsend that the monies were being automatically drafted from the corporate fund and placed in a account to be held until loan maturity. After talking with the bank, that never occurred. When I spoke to Attorney Kankar and asked them whose duty and responsibility is to ensure that the repayment schedule is followed, it was stated to me it is the village manager's responsibility to make sure the funds are transferred from said fund back into the TIF in a timely manner. What I will tell you is, based on talking to Attorney Kankar, there is no penalty upon the village because we missed those payment dates, but we want to make sure there's integrity in following these payment dates as listed today.
as listed, exactly.
Trustee Wilson?
Do you have a payment schedule for the current, what we need to,
Yes, that loan matures on the 22nd of this month. My goal is prior to the 22nd of this month, the $1.7 million loan will be paid off prior to the maturity date, I want to say either December 22nd or 23rd. But we're looking to make that repayment next week, early, based on the village's failure to make the proper repayment schedule.
The schedule's right here in,
No, this,
we didn't,
yeah, I'm talking about this one, right?
Yes.
This is it.
Yes.
do you have a balance on what that this current year's loan is?
So I don't have the paper in front of me. I believe there's additional $23,000 or $25,000 that's left to be paid. Like I said, the monies are available in our general corporate fund and our other funds. So it's not as if the money is not available. It was just not properly drafted back to the TIF as scheduled and as written. And like I said, for transparency purposes, I think it's important for the board to realize and know that, because the board has asked a lot of questions in regards to the repayment, and that information was not provided to the board. And I did have a conference call with the bank and Attorney Kankar, who generated this document, and I asked him to clearly delineate the responsibilities of repayment, and it is not the bank's responsibility as it was generally perceived by the previous village manager. It is the village's responsibility to pay that money back because it's a village-controlled account, and all that has to happen is proper transfers from one account to another.
Thank you. Roll.
Yes, sir.
Clerk Jones, village manager. It looks like in the fourth whereas paragraph in the resolution, it cites to the levy ordinance, and I believe it cites to 2017-29, but that's going to need to be amended, I believe, to 2017-26. I just want to.
That would be correct. The attorney asked for the next ordinance number to do the paperwork. Clerk D will make that modification prior to this document being certified by herself and the mayor.
Oh, okay.
Madam Clerk, that's the section where they wanted the levy ordinance number to be listed as part of the TIF loan repayment. So we're just off the number, so that will be corrected prior to execution.
Yeah.
What number is that for the levy execution, Clerk D?
Thank you.
Oh, so that's the number you're getting. So Attorney Wise, she said the number is 26. Is that the number we have on the proposed? Okay. Okay, not a problem.
Says 0217-29.
Right, on that facilitation.
All right, roll call.
Trustee Williams. Trustee Wilson.
Both sides.
Trustee Brooks.
Both sides.
Trustee McMullen.
Both sides.
Trustee Payton.
Aye.
Trustee Brown.
Aye.
And Mayor Cummings.
Both sides.
Madam Mayor, that's resolution 2017-29.
Thank you. Good news. Appointment, motion appointing Mr. Edward J. Lovelace to the Board of Fire and Police Commission for a full term. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved by trustee Wilson,
Second.
second by trustee Brooks.
Madam Mayor, this, I know I left my commission. Is he the only one that would be finishing, like, do we have the dates? Because I just want to say that I know Commissioner Humes and all, and, oh, I'm sorry.
Commissioner Humes and we have folks, do we all have them stagnant now so that the commission, when we wrote, well, we know the rule is that they stay until, let's say if you're mayor forever, they stay commissioner forever, but did we stagger them off so that, because he was finishing mine, I just want to make sure that they all set, so now when y'all receive their training, every last commissioner will be in there long enough for all the money we're going to invest in them.
Correct me, Clerk Jones, but I think he was the only one that needed to do full term. That was left
Right, because he was,
the only one for yours.
He was the last one?
Right.
no, this was to fill
On the
the
field line.
position that you left, and your term expired December 31st,
He
right?
has the lucky term, the one that
Right.
lasts. So tell me he got the lucky term.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right,
This
We
one
can vote
expires
that.
in 2020.
Thank
okay.
you. Roll call, please.
Trustee Williams. Trustee Wilson.
Aye.
Trustee Brooks.
Both sides.
Trustee McMullen.
Aye.
Trustee Payton.
Aye.
Trustee Brown.
Aye.
And Mayor Cummings.
Aye. Congratulations.
And Madam Mayor, when he's available, we can administer the oath I did that.
Yes, thank you. Motion, F2H, motion appointing Mr. Robert Travis to the Human Service Special Events Committee, HHSC. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved by trustee Wilson, seconded by trustee McMullen.
What's the date?
His term to be full term.
The expiration year.
Is for 4 years. 3 years, I'm sorry, 3-year term.
Madam, the reason I did not put a term there is because in reading the ordinance, I wasn't sure since the 3 that you appointed at the last meeting were for 3 years.
Oh, yes.
If this is a 3-year term, then the terms won't be staggered.
Right,
So,
there's 3-year term.
yes, so that's why,
Okay,
right. So, I think a full term for a new appointee could be 2 years. I didn't want to jump the gun, that's
Okay.
why I didn't put a term.
so we'll just do a full term for 2 years.
2 years, a full 2-year term. Okay.
Appointment, Mr. Sasha,
Wait a minute.
I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry, roll call.
2019,
Yes, sir.
2020.
2020.
No, his would expire in 19.
19, okay.
because December of 2019, because it's a 2-year term. We're just reestablishing membership
Yes.
in that committee.
Right.
The 3 last board meetings were for 3-year terms.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to make a motion for this to read, these terms will expire in December 31st, 2019. So strike the question marks and place question marks for 2019.
Second.
Okay. Thank you. Roll call, please.
This is on the amendment.
Yes, ma'am. To amend it, it says December 31st, 2019.
2019. Trustee Williams. Trustee Wilson.
Aye.
Trustee Brooks.
Both sides.
Trustee McMullen.
Aye.
Trustee Payton.
Aye.
Trustee Brown.
Aye.
And Mayor Tucker.
Aye. Motion F2I, appointment of Mr. Sasha, okay. Doing yes?
Same thing.
And Mr. Warren Hunter to the Finance Committee. Is there a motion?
Madam Mayor, I'd like to make so moved.
Moved by trustee Brown, second by trustee McMullen.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to put, again, place the question marks with 2019. So striking it.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
if we could back up, we took a motion and approved it to
Oh, yes.
set the term. We need now to vote on the main motion.
Okay. Roll call.
Trustee Williams. Trustee Wilson.
Aye.
Trustee Brooks.
Both sides.
Trustee McMullen.
Aye.
Trustee Payton.
Aye.
Trustee Brown.
Aye.
And Mayor Tucker.
Aye. Thank you. Now we go to Mr. Sasha Young and Mr. Warren Hunter for the Finance Committee. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second. Moved by trustee Wilson, second by trustee McMullen. And we will, as trustee Brown said,
Yes,
2019.
yes, to strike the question marks and amend it to 2019.
Who was the second?
Second.
Second McMullen.
All sides.
That was trustee, I'm sorry, paid for the amendment to 2019. Roll call.
One moment.
Sure.
So this would be a partial term for both of these. That's the question.
No, there are dual 4 terms, so we really should be trustees, we should make that what, 2020?
I don't know, because see, I don't know
Finance.
what the terms are on the current members and who's being replaced.
Trustee
That I would need.
Payton, vaguely, okay. Well, we will have to, right now, for record, we can come back and amend it, but we'll put 2019. So we'll find that out. I'll get that list. Okay? Okay.
Just one comment there.
Sure. Yes, sir.
With all of the financial difficulties that this village is having, and the reason we got into the shape that we are in right now, in part is because of lack of citizen involvement asking the tough questions. So it's very important, I think, to approve these 2 individuals to the Finance Committee, so at least we have bodies. For the last 3 months, show you how pitiful it is, we couldn't even get a quorum because the existing members are not showing up. So, if we want to move this village forward, we've got to be involved as a community. And if these gentlemen want to help us do that, then I'm all for it.
Yes, they are. Thank you so much, sir. Roll call.
This is on,
The 2019 Finance Committee.
okay, so this would not be a full term. This
Well,
would be
we'll
a
take a
partial
look and
term.
see what their terms are. So we go back and find, we can amend it. Okay?
This is the motion.
Okay.
Okay. Trustee Williams.
Both sides.
Trustee Wilson.
Aye.
Trustee Brooks.
Both sides.
Trustee McMullen.
Both sides.
Trustee Payne.
Aye.
Trustee Brown.
Question, is this on the amendment to the 2019 or?
Yes.
No, both sides.
Mayor Covington.
Both sides. Motion.
Now it's a roll call on the
Their appointments.
Trustee Williams.
Both sides.
Trustee Wilson.
Aye.
Trustee Brooks.
Both sides.
Trustee McMullen.
Both sides.
Trustee Payne.
Aye.
Trustee Brown.
Aye.
Mayor Covington.
Aye, congratulations, guys. Thank you so much, I appreciate it. And I must say that I'm happy now that we got these committees back going. And in January, we'll have full staff and you'll hopefully have the list of who's expired, who was there, whatever other committees that we have. And we're gonna even come up with a new one. So thank you so much for volunteering, we appreciate it.
Madam Mayor,
Yes, ma'am.
if I could ask for their information, so their contact information, not now, but
Absolutely.
if you could contact me with your contact information.
Thank you. Well, I think that's okay. Okay, bills payable for your reading. Attached for your approval is a listing of the critical general operating expenses of the Village of University Park that occurred on November 29, 2017 through December 12, 2017. General fund account, $172,838.92. Road and bridge fund, $12,802.89. So town and center fund, $2,182.72. Bond fund, $500. Payroll, $148, and a total of $188,472.53. Is there a motion?
So move.
Moved by trustee Wilkie. Second by trustee McMullen. Comments, concerns, questions? Hearing none.
Question.
Oh, sorry.
Thought I had none, but I thought on our last board meeting in November, we voted Settlers Pond $6,000, and we voted on it last month because it was gonna be paid out before some certain date. But now it's on this month again, so I just want clarification.
So actually, trustee, I knew you were gonna ask that question. So the last board meeting is actually because of your concern, we removed the check off of bills payable. And we did not pay that check out. Settlers Pond was actually paid on Friday after they executed all the required paperwork, just to give a level of comfort. So that's what occurred. So there's not a double payment. We took it off the bills payable at the last board meeting based on your concerns. This is gonna be accounts paid because it was paid out on Friday prior to the board meeting. But since the board already approved a contractual agreement to release the animals, then at that time, we want to show that the check was actually issued and funded.
Thank you. Any others? Roll call.
Trustee Wilson.
Aye.
Trustee Brooks.
Both sides.
Trustee McMullen.
Both sides.
Trustee Payne.
Aye.
Trustee Brown.
Aye.
Mayor Covington.
Aye. This time, I know she's been sitting here a while, I'd like, before we give a report, someone else can come up that has an interest in the Village of University Park. Just to come to the mic and talk about your interest and what the interest in the doctors that have been contacting you since and this big thing, the idea that you have at Village of University Park. Oh, okay, before he does that.
Good evening. This is very unexpected. I was actually here just to support the beauty business, but I am also seeking your support, hopefully in the near future, to also start a business in the development. I am a registered nurse, and I have been for about almost 16 years, if you will. And I have worked for many years with patients that have opioid addiction. And I understand that in this community, and not just this community, but the statistics in this community since 2015 support that there's a great need for clinics. We call them MMT clinics, or medical support treatment for these patients, in order to provide them some resources and support. And upon my research and in the areas, my hope is to bring a clinic to this community in order to support those patients and provide them the resources that they are in need of in order to reduce the statistics in the area, reduce the statistics in the nearby and surrounding communities as well. It's very serious. Here recently, our president has ruled that it's a national emergency. It is something very serious. Opioid addiction, if you guys aren't really aware of, is something that's killing a lot of our community, people in our community, and it's something that we're in great need of. And when looking at surrounding areas and some of the clinics that are in surrounding areas, there are none here in Will County nearby. The nearest one, we do have one in Joliet, but the services that they are providing are limited. Some of them are just for like DUI clinics and so on and so forth. So we will be able to provide those services in addition to MMT treatment for these patients and hopefully reducing the statistics in the area.
Excuse me, I'm sorry.
Yes.
I appreciate you coming forth tonight. Is that analogous to like the heroin type of weaning off process with the opioid?
Yes, one of them. When you talk about opioid addiction, it's not just limited to heroin. It can be prescription medications in addition to heroin, crack cocaine, and so on and so forth.
So is it like dispensing methadone?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
We call it medication management because that's exactly what it is. It's the stigma that's attached to it by just saying methadone. It's a harsh statistic. And when you think of just methadone, it's like, the population. And so we call it medical management treatment. Because of the population, these people work, they have jobs, they are able to support. They just need assistance in supporting, and something that can help them, of course, recover from their addiction.
Because I work for the city colleges, Malcolm X specifically, and we had a satellite area where 63rd and I think 63rd and Racine,
Yes.
and they had one there.
Yes.
So, and I watched it every day, and they would come in and get their
Yes.
treatment, and it was an interesting whole process there. So you would like to bring that type of clinic to University Park?
Yes, I used to work at Cook County Jail, and I work with that population of patients. Currently, I'm a nurse educator, so I teach nursing students, and I still teach psychiatric nursing. So just knowing and dealing with that population, and it's the lack of resources that are available. Again, I believe it partly due to the stigma that's attached to it. But, they need assistance as well. When you think about the patients, I think that they just think that they're just, they'll bring certain crimes and things to the area, but not at all. I actually train now at clinics out in Elgin weekly. I'm training out there because I want to ensure that I'm knowledgeable and that I understand what's required of the clinic to ensure that it functions properly. And that's not the case. I mean, oftentimes they come in, they'll receive their treatment, and then they go off to work. They work, 9 to 5 jobs. These people are functional. It's just unfortunately for them, they have an addiction. And again, it's not limited to heroin. It's, prescription medications as well, maybe due to some sort of injury they may have sustained in previous years, and that they've just become addicted to these, to the particular drug, whether it be prescription and or such as heroin.
That was just one of the satellite agencies I worked with. And is it state funded?
Yeah, well, you can seek state funding. What they've now approved is that Medicaid will be able to cover some of the resources. Beforehand, it was not, but because it has become such an epidemic, they now have actually approved that Medicaid will cover some of the services. Most of your clinics are self-paid. And because these patients have addictions, they pay it. It's either you pay it or you don't get your treatment. And so, you know, you have a lot of clinics that are self-pay and or they will accept insurance in addition to self-pay. You know, are the requirements for most of your clinics. And that's because beforehand, the insurance would not cover it. But now you have Medicaid, and you have some of your insurance companies, Humana is one you have a couple that are kind of starting to gravitate towards it because they're seeing that it's, you know, the medication management is something that's needed. It's a resource that's actually needed. So they're starting to kind of jump on board, whereas before they weren't. It was really just, most of your clinics were self-paid. In the city, it's saturated. They have them on probably every other corner. Out here, that's not the case. They lack the resources, and that's partly why the statistics in the area are so high, because they don't. We do have one in University Park that I've been in contact with, but the nearest one outside of that is going to be Joliet. And again, they don't provide all of the resources. We will, you know, provide counseling services in addition to medication management, DUI services, which if someone is court appointed and they require that they have to, you know, submit so many hours, there'll be additional services that we'll also have for the patients.
Can you, for the record, can you state your name again?
Sure. Jonelle Benson Cobbs.
Yeah, a nurse's rock. I've been married to one for 23 years.
We do, right?
And Janelle, when you did, you was telling us when you heard about this, because we did go to Joliet and see some sites before you even came here, and they were talking about the sensitivity of it and how it's so needed, and it's nowhere in this area, and the people are at a disadvantage. And you told me something about the doctors when you heard about they were just overwhelmed.
Yes, so actually in order for the clinic to function, we have to have a medical director. So immediately I had a couple that jumped right on board because they also realized the need. Even the clinic that I train at in Elgin, he was even willing to come on board out in this area, you know, and he has 5 operational clinics that are in the northern suburbs, Elgin and Fox Lake and even down into the Rockford area. But because he also, and with his expertise and his experience, he was willing to come down into this area and even function as the medical director. The medical director that will be coming on board with me has an extensive background. He actually was one of the physicians that I worked with when I worked at Cook County Jail, dealing with the methadone population there as well. So this is something that he's extremely familiar with. He's a licensed psychiatrist, but he does have experience with this population of patients. And so do I. So, you know, with that, we're hoping to be able to, you know, again, provide those resources to that population. The need is just overwhelming right now. University Park and your surrounding, going into like your Tinley Park area, from 2015 into current, is one of the top cities as far as deaths from opioid addiction. So, you know, during my search, that was one of the reasons why I sought out this area, because there are no resources that are currently available as such. And so I thought that it would be something to help with that population and to help decrease the deaths that are occurring as a result of opioid addiction.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We look forward.
Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, we have a presentation from insurance proposal for Bob Gaylord.
Good evening, Mayor and Board. I'm here to present, we'll kind of just go over some question and answers in regards to the health insurance and property and casualty. John told me to be completely honest, because we became broker last year, and as you know, the